Off top, New Orleans is home of the country's largest slave revolt. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. We are joined by Charlie Kravitz as usual and Kevin Clark, who, as you can hear, we got some ambient sound in the background because he is in the happiest place on earth, New Orleans, Radio Row. Ready for the Super Bowl. How you doing, Kev?
I'm doing great. I am going to the happiest place on earth right after this. I'm going to Disney with my 2-year-old. And I'm nervous.
And you go last week during the Pro Bowl. I feel like that was the time to go.
I was not invited to the Pro Bowl. I didn't make it.
All right, well, keep working hard, man. Study your tape
I'll get there.
And make some plays, and one day you'll get voted in.
The one thing, so we just had Gerald McCoy on the show, and he was talking about Disney because he goes there all the time because he's got a house in Tampa. And then all of the guys around here, my producers and stuff who have older kids, were saying that I guess you just rent strollers for older kids and they just fall asleep in the stroller, even if they're like 5 years removed from strollers. I'm more confused about Disney than I was 2 hours ago. I don't know
I've been a few times. I'll give you a good Disney breakdown after the show. I won't bore people with it on here. We're going to get to some basketball talk at some point, but I think, and we'll do Super Bowl stuff, but I think the place to start is Myles Garrett, right?
I got to say.
What?
Kevin, I need to ask off the jump. Is this the biggest week for you accumulating names to drop over on the course of your other podcasts and shows?
No. So
this is a top 3 name accumulation week?
No. So Charlie, you're kind of misunderstanding what a name drop is. Okay. So if I'm doing Thursday, right, and I've got Shedeur Sanders coming on, the problem is that Shedeur Sanders doing 10 other shows. So I don't get to name drop that, and then like all of a sudden Nate Tice can name drop it, Kay Adams can name drop it, so that's not a special name drop for me. The camp tour in August is proprietary name dropping. Because you're getting, hey, I was just talking to Mike Tomlin about this, and nobody else is getting Mike Tomlin. You got to have the edge. Analytics is all about finding the inefficiencies. And I feel like training camp, I'm the only guy getting to drop those names.
I just like that you actually do walk around like a person collecting coins. Just like, you know what? I'm going to use this later. Like, I don't care what you say. Just allow me to be in your presence while I ask you a question so I can then drop this later. And then you do this during training camp, then throughout the course of the year, you're like, hey.
Well, you
just flick everybody a quarter.
It's funny. I was just talking to that Brett Beach about name drops. Yeah, that's good.
Well played.
Hey, look, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And he's very prepared for the season. All right, should we do Myles Garrett? It was actually incredibly informative. Now I'm going to learn I just learned how to accumulate names to drop. Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Spinning this forward, there's a million things about how this happened, how he got here. We know that this organization has been a huge dumpster fire since they acquired Deshaun Watson in one of the worst trades in professional sports history. But who do you think should trade for Myles Garrett? He's 29. He's one of the best defensive players of his generation. But he is on probably the second half of his career.
Yeah, I mean, we went through some teams earlier, and I think I came to the conclusion of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, there's nobody who should not trade for Myles Garrett. He is the perfect defensive end. He's a great pass rusher who doesn't have to rely solely on being undersized and quick to get to the edge. Like he plays in any system. He's athletic enough to do basketball moves on guards and centers, and also big and strong enough to bull rush tackles. Like, he is quite possibly the best at his position in the league, and he's a future Hall of Famer who set a bunch of like milestone records early in his career. Like, there's nobody who won't benefit from him. I think the only differentiating factor is like how much do you have to give up and how close does it make you. So like we can go down the teams name by name if you want to, or we can let Kevin say something that might or might not be right.
Every team should call, and I think they will call, because Nico Harrison is not an NFL GM. He's an NBA GM. But it's funny to me because I think there's how many non-quarterbacks, Domonique, are figure-it-out-later guys. What I mean by that is, like, if someone says, hey, we have Myles Garrett available, you just take him, and then you figure everything else out later. And that's why there's a fit for all 31 teams. Everybody needs him. And, like, there were people saying, you always see kind of the team bloggers, and they come out with their takes. And there are people saying, well, it's not, we're good on defensive line. No, you're not. You're not, because you don't have Myles Garrett. You're not good at defensive line because you don't have Myles Garrett. And so for me, like, I think every team's going to call. I think he needs to be very picky about where he goes. Because I think everybody kind of think like he should go to an upper echelon contender. He should only go to a team like the Bills. He should only go to a team that we know is going to make the divisional round no matter what happens next year. Because you don't want to end up in a worse spot or a lateral move and kind of torture your career in a place. He really likes Cleveland. He loves Cleveland. I will not name drop how many times I've talked to him about the city of Cleveland. I could, but I won't. In training camp, frankly, but this is like a big step for him. This is not just someone randomly being like, I don't want to play for this team anymore.
I mean, it's career defining.
This is not James Harden. Yeah, this is not James Harden being like, I hate the Sixers now. I don't want to play there anymore. This is a guy who wanted. This is like a statue guy in Cleveland, and he doesn't take this lightly. And I think that he understands now that they're either going to draft a quarterback or figure it out in free agency, and then they're going to reset the clock on that, and then he's going to be. His prime's going to be over by the time they're ready to compete again. I think he understands that. So the key is actually being extremely picky, working with the Browns. I think
sometimes we forget how much the legacies of players are defined by the postseason and Super Bowl. 100%. And that's why I do think this is somewhat career defining for him, because we'll talk about him differently if he pulls like a Jalen Ramsey, who was traded and then went on to win when he went to the Rams, went on to win a Super Bowl. Like, I feel like it's different than languishing in Jacksonville, even though you're great when Ramsey was there. So I do think, to your point, it matters, but you made it seem like he can choose. This ain't basketball.
How much leverage does a guy like him have?
So let me ask you a question. Are the packages going to be that different? Like, isn't every team going to give up as many first-round picks as it takes? Like,
yeah,
maybe,
I don't know if the packages are going to be that different, but I do know that it's not going to be up to him, because I'm almost certain that they're not going to trade him. And whether you think it should, you're certainly not going to get me any pushback from me on whether the players should have a little bit more power in where they end up. But do they? I don't know. Like, they're not going to trade him in division, and likely not even in conference. Like, I think that. So to your point, there are plenty of all these, like the Bills. I don't know that they would want to trade him to the Bills, even though we know that the Bills or the Browns are not legitimate competitors to the Bills in the AFC championship race. You still don't necessarily, normally you don't see that happen. I think the Lions is much more likely of a place to go, and it'd be an incredible fit because, again, everywhere it's an incredible fit.
Can I ask you an important question? Why would the Browns be scared about the division or the conference when they're basically conceding that for like 3 years? Like, they're not gonna. It's not like, we don't want to see Myles Garrett in the AFC Championship game, buddy. You're not going to get there. It's like the meme of the guy putting his hand on his buddy's shoulder. You can trade him wherever you want. You're not going to see that guy in January. He's playing on a different plane. And so I think you can actually open it up a little bit more and just figure out what makes the most sense for everybody. I mean, the other thing is, if he gets a ring, this isn't like a Ray Bork situation for my old school hockey fans. He's going to be the best player on whatever team he goes to, like, without a doubt. And so I think it's a unique situation. I don't remember a situation like this ever happening for a non-quarterback or a quarterback. My thing is,
there's a couple of questions that you asked. So to the first question about it doesn't matter. Like, I agree with you and I understand. And I said pretty much the same thing about trading him to the Bills. However, I think we lose this as we read about players and we talk about players and we think about where they go. We lose the fact that all of the decisions that we make have some other impact on everyone else. Like, once you do that, what you are saying to everybody else in an organization, and whether you believe it to be true or not, you can't show up to those very physical and grueling training camps and say, you know what, we traded Myles Garrett to the Ravens because we don't give a about our future, and then expect them to engage and expect fans to buy season tickets. So, like, I know that we think about it as not wanting to compete against them, but it is also about the message that you are sending, and it's like conventional sports wisdom for a reason.
So if the Ravens offered a significantly better package of picks than any other team? You think the Browns should turn it down for their team culture?
No, I think that's justifiable. That's different. But I'm saying, like, this conversation started on the premise that
all the packages are similar.
Kevin said all the packages are similar. I think that if there is like some ridiculous offer, then the explanation to your team is much easier to make. It's like, no, we're not giving up on the season. These fools gave us first-round picks until 2030. So, like, that's different, 2035.
Two things. The only thing worse than doing a grueling training camp and knowing that Myles Garrett got traded to the Ravens is having to give me 10 minutes afterwards. Oh, Clark's right there.
Only to fill up the name drop bag.
Yep, he's got nothing except he wants to fill up the notebook with names.
This shiver just went down Denzel Ward's spine thinking about next training camp.
So I've said this a bunch. I said it after Russell Wilson was traded, and I got killed for it, and I still think it's true. I do not think an NFL team has ever traded a player they wanted to keep. I don't think it's ever happened. I think that you looked at it with Aaron Rodgers, where he asked for a trade. They just kept him for 2 more years, and then right at the moment, they were like, oh, okay, we don't need him anymore. Jordan Love's developed. You're gone. Russell Wilson, same thing. I don't think that, like, maybe Khalil Mack, but that was a contract thing. I think that the leverage of the franchise tag, the leverage of these contracts, the leverage of the dead cap, all of these things have prevented a situation where a guy has said, I want to get out of here, and the team immediately says yes. So I think we might, for us, just kind of like, because we're NBA brained and all this stuff, we think there's going to be some bidding war and then a move like 2 weeks from now. I think the most likely option is the Browns are just like, nah, we're not going to do it, because no player has ever been traded when a team wants to keep him. Never happened.
But counterpoint to that, because this is interesting, they are in complete purgatory. They have they mortgaged their future for Deshaun Watson. Their cap is destroyed because of it. Their future prospects are sort of just destroyed because of it. They should want to trade him. Even if that's like a bad message to the locker room, they should want like as many bites at the apple of trying to rebuild the team. And like, I don't think that's immoral. I know it's not
I think it's a bad message if he has not asked for the trade. Him asking for the trade does give them the opportunity to probably approach this season the way that they should approach this season, and accumulating draft picks and preparing to move on from the Deshaun Watson decision.
What is fair value for Myles Garrett, Foxworth?
I mean, I think we can go back to the Khalil Mack is like the most recent example, and that was 2 firsts, right?
And a third.
And a third. And then there was like a bunch of other like switches of picks and stuff that seemed somewhat irrelevant. But I think it matters what team it is, because if we're looking at the Eagles, for example, like they're on the list of teams that would be interested. Myles Garrett falls squarely into the Howie Roseman evaluation matrix. Is he big? Is he fast? Can we have him?
And he loves trades. Howie Roseman was like one of the first GMs to be like, I can trades are an undervalued asset.
It seems ridiculous.
Howie is, as we speak, offering a cool 6th-round pick right now for Myles Garrett just to anchor the negotiation.
It seems ridiculous to talk about the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl as teams that need him, but those are 2 teams where I'd be willing to pay more if I were one of those teams because of what it means to my team. Like putting Myles Garrett next to either one of those defensive tackles. Like, I don't give a how many first-round picks I have to give up. We're going to be good on defense, guys. We are going to be good on defense with Myles Garrett and Jalen Carter. And then
Nolan Smith, too.
Yeah, and Nolan Smith. And
modern Javon Curse.
And then the Eagles actually have, like, really good secondary players, too. That's terrifying defensively. We're looking at they're already one of the best defenses in football. We're looking at one of the most talented defenses of all time. And the same thing about Chris Jones next to Myles Garrett. Like, I'm feeling like that you give Spags Myles Garrett. Like, I will give you 3 first-round picks if I'm the Chiefs to get Myles Garrett, healthy Myles Garrett for 4 years.
We are so NBA brained. We literally just got so we're like, how do we get Luka to the Lakers? And we just did it for the Chiefs and Eagles.
No, I guess. Well, what do you want to work down to? The teams that are I'm
about to do the same thing. Can I pitch a team too?
Niners.
No, I was gonna say the Lions.
Yeah.
The Lions are the team to me. It's like put him with.
That's reasonable.
Like put him with Hutchinson. Anchor this defense that could have the best defensive line in the NFL if you had Hutchinson.
And they play the beauty about that particular selection is it's a team that wants to be a man coverage dominant team. And what really helps man coverage teams is having some real pass rushers, and having those two, and their strong interior defensive line, putting a healthy Hutch, assuming he comes back full strength, and Myles Garrett opposite him. Yeah, it's
just like a team, and you want to build as big of a cushion as possible in case Jared Goff has a game where he malfunctions, which he's a very good quarterback, but he has malfunctioned in the playoffs. And, this is the team that traded Matt Stafford when he was the best quarterback in franchise history for Jared Goff and 2 first-round picks. Like, they aren't adverse to taking risks to try and jumpstart a
This isn't
build.
a risk, though. Like, I think quarterbacks are a risk.
Anytime you give up multiple first-round picks, it's a risk.
Yes,
Anytime
I
you mortgage
completely
your
agree,
future, it's absolutely a risk.
I mean, of course there's a risk. It's a different type of risk. But anyway, I'm sorry. We boxed you out.
What about Houston? He's a Texas guy. I feel like Myles Garrett with that roster would be a
Mavericks
contender.
fan.
Is that just not good enough if you're just actually just ring chasing?
No, I mean, if I'm Houston, I'm definitely interested. They have a great defensive front. I've never been opposed to doubling down on your strengths. I don't know. I feel like we could get in circles throwing these teams up, because I'm not going to say no to anybody.
I like it.
Yeah, I know you like
it.
it.
That's what I said. I was like, every team should be like, we'll take it. We'll figure it out.
Anybody.
We're good.
Get them.
The Houston one's interesting, though, because the defense, your point, you're doubling down on strengths, but their offensive line and their offense is like significantly problematic to keeping their franchise cornerstone and C.J. Stroud upright this year. And his development stagnated because of the coordinator and the offensive line.
Fair point. I mean, that's the only argument against him, and I made it to Charlie in our group chat just to upset him when he was throwing around the Commanders. Is like, nah, the Commanders
that was a joke. I just want to say this to the audience. I was just like,
the Commanders have too many holes.
Why am I not in the group chat?
Well, you got us.
You actually you were. So speaking of that group chat, we have 2 Kevins. One's our producer, Kevin, who is in a group chat. And so when Domonique texted you this morning, probably as you were waking up, saying "sweet baby man!" he was trying to text that to our producer, Kevin, who at one point was nicknamed
no explanation needed.
Sweet baby man. Not by me, but by old money, Charlie.
You ruined it now. You explained it.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm a little. Should I be offended?
I don't know. I don't care.
Okay.
I thought all right. Do you guys want to go through some trades that have worked and not worked in NFL history? Because I think we think of NBA trades as the superstar side always winning.
Yes.
I think you go through that, and that's true a lot of times, not true a lot of times, but that's the historical point of it. Times it's worked with quarterbacks. Matt Stafford. Times it hasn't worked. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson in recent memory. Times it has worked with non-quarterbacks. Randy Moss, Marshall Faulk, Jason Pierre-Paul, A.J. Brown, Von Miller, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Ramsey. Times it hasn't worked. Herschel Walker, Antonio Brown, Khalil Mack in certain ways. Like, this is, while it is, you have a higher probability with non-quarterbacks of making this be like an impact thing, it's not like a sure thing by any means. You get the better side of a trade in the NFL when you trade for a quarter or when you trade for a star.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sure thing to the degree that nothing's a sure thing. But, I mean, if you are in the business of building a roster, this is as sure as you get, I think, is a proven NFL effective veteran who is the superstar level. So, like, I get your point. I would not concern myself with, like, hey, maybe this won't work. It's going to work.
That's not a conversation you think you have in, like, in that room? Like what's
absolutely not.
You don't think worst case scenario? Like,
no way.
What we're giving up?
No chance. Not for. I mean, it depends on how much you're giving up, but not when it's Myles Garrett.
Okay, but here's what I would say about that, Charlie, is that the NFL is very risk averse historically. They're not.
Right.
They're getting less risk averse every single year, but typically the team trading for a star until maybe 4 or 5 years ago was the desperate team with cap space. Like Randy Moss going to the Raiders is like a great example. Hey, we want to take a big swing. We're ready for this, and so sometimes it doesn't work out because of the profile of the team that does it. Like, there's not most of these teams, like the Packers, never take these big swings on trades, right? That's just not their DNA. The Chiefs, until a couple of years ago, didn't do it. Brett Veach one of the best things about Brett Veach is he was able to say, hey, let's start trading first-round picks for these proven veterans, and they end up getting Frank Clark and a couple other guys who could help them. But I think a lot of times it's because of the way NFL views trade and risk that historically these things haven't worked out, because like it was mostly just bad teams doing it. It was good teams trading to bad teams. Richard Seymour going from the Patriots. I mean, how many times did the Patriots trade a star who was 1 year away from free agency and ended up winning the deal because of it?
Right.
I mean, and then the Moss trade back to.
I was about to say Moss on both sides of this. I put Moss on the positive ledger to New England.
I put Moss
but that was a different deal. That was a flyer.
Right, I know.
That wasn't first round picks.
But it's still. I guess the point. You're making a good point. Is that's considered zero risk. But the point that I'm making is proven NFL, like not proven like good starter. Like we're talking about superstar level, Hall of Fame consideration type players. To me, that it seems almost foolish to be out here calculating the risk. Like, tell me what the price is, and I'm paying it, especially if I am a team that's knocking on the door. This is like akin to Les Snead's F them picks, in that like, we're here, man. Yeah. Like, let's go. Yeah. We are here. I'm not going to like bank on hitting some picks next year if I think that this decision drastically improves my Super Bowl chances this season.
And you are totally correct that this is a known asset who's system proof, who's going to be phenomenal. But it's just like, I think you still have to weigh the risk and think about it, because like you look at the teams that have given away multiple first round picks, like the 49ers are paying the price now for the Trey Lance trade of the first-round picks they gave up. The Browns are in this situation because they couldn't build a roster because of the first-round picks they gave up for Deshaun Watson, who on the field at the time seemed like a sure thing because he'd been playing in Houston in a really messed-up situation. On the field. Very clear. On the field, seemed like a sure thing. Like even the Russell Wilson trade, like sure, Sean Payton's able to bail them out and make them a playoff team quickly, but it's not. I mean, they gave up a lot.
This is why I divided it between quarterbacks and non-quarterbacks, because I do think that it matters a lot. It's a lot different for the non-quarterbacks.
Yes.
I think the success rate is a lot higher. What do you think, Kevin?
It's completely different situations. I mean, you mentioned the Trey Lance thing. That's kind of proving Dominique's point. Like, you pay for proven commodities. You don't pay for Trey Lance in a weak quarterback draft where the other option was Mac Jones. And like every justification they've given has for that trade has been terrible. Deshaun
and they
Watson
did trade for Christian McCaffrey and had a realistic shot at winning the Super Bowl every year that he was healthy.
They did. And for me, the Watson thing, that was a bad trade even without he was good at football. I mean, at the time, like the emergency pod I did, I said it was the most reckless decision in the history of football, and that continues to be correct. But no, I agree with Foxworth. Like the non-quarterbacks, they're mostly just plug and play. I mean, like if you can generate pressure rate in Cleveland, you can do it in Detroit and Houston and San Francisco and all of those places. So I think, quarterbacks is such a different deal because so many things, like with Russell Wilson, his lack of mobility, I think, and it was declining every single year, was changing the way he played maybe more than we thought. And the Seahawks, again, it goes back to you don't trade a guy you want to keep. The Seahawks knew that he wasn't able to move in the pocket as much. They knew he wasn't going to be able to buy time and hit those moon balls anymore. It was just a different player. They saw that. I think a lot of times when you trade a guy in the NFL, it's because you know about their declining skills. Myles Garrett is not that. That's why this is so different. If I would move heaven and earth to trade for Myles Garrett. I don't care what it takes. And how many quarterbacks would be untouchable for Myles Garrett? I mean, I guess it's the same. It's the cousin of the like, where would you draft this guy question. But
the only reason why I wouldn't trade a quarterback for Myles Garrett is because we need a quarterback to win a championship. Myles Garrett is he's better for your team than most of those quarterbacks, but you need a quarterback to win. I think sometimes when I'm faced with these type of decisions, difficult decisions, I think about like what regret would I be more comfortable living with? I'd be much happier living with the regret of me trading everything for Myles Garrett and him getting hurt or him not panning out and me not having picks than me saying, nah, I'm going to hit on these first rounders, these 2 first rounders that are coming in. Yeah. There's no chance that these 2 first, especially if you're a team that's interested in Myles Garrett, which means your picks are probably middle of the pack or later, there's no chance that those 2 picks combined will come anywhere near what Myles Garrett is capable of.
So I had to play devil's advocate there just to talk about.
Okay, so you just let us know that you're not an idiot.
Well, thank you. Yes, I appreciate you saying I'm not an idiot. Very important. But part of it is too, like you just got to the interesting to simplify it. Don't mortgage your future for bad players, and those bad players are available for a reason. I have to ask you a trolley question because
I love it.
You said you need a quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. If the Eagles could trade Jalen Hurts for Myles Garrett, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
Who's
if there's any team that would, it would be the Eagles, but I think they wouldn't.
Who's the best quarterback that would trade their quarterback for Myles Garrett?
Dak?
Probably.
I mean, are we just saying that Jerry is crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. That's way too much risk for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a tough question to ask because I think that
none of them. Just probably none of them.
Because anybody who would be trading for him is
this?
in win now mode, and you don't get rid of your quarterback when you're in win now mode.
Yeah.
Would the Titans? This is hypothetically. We wouldn't want to go to the Titans. Would the Titans trade the first overall pick plus another pick for Myles Garrett?
I would.
Yeah,
In this draft?
Yeah.
If it was this year compared to last
Yeah.
year? Last year, the answer would be no if they had the first pick last year. This year,
Well,
probably.
also they would. But they would also. The Titans probably going to pick like second next year too.
Yeah. I mean,
Especially
I guess
quarterback.
I guess I wouldn't because Myles Garrett would then be in the same situation.
On the Titans.
But I
Right.
mean, as a accumulation of value, I think Myles Garrett is more valuable than the number one overall pick in a second round or a third round or whatever. But yeah, if I'm the Titans, that makes no sense.
For what? For why?
Yeah, let me go all in on this roster. Wait till you see my man Burks open it up.
I just want to tell you guys, there's a Nickelodeon set like 10 feet to my left that has been completely empty for the 2 days I've been here and just kind of like hanging there like a Chekhov's gun. I knew there was going to be some noise there, and now they're just going full Nickelodeon as this is happening. And
Perfect timing. So
it's
slime
quite
and
a sight.
everything.
There's literally something called the slimiest athlete, which I don't think Nickelodeon meant in the way that we would do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna
some sort of
refrain.
wheel.
We just talked about the Cleveland Browns.
And we discussed never mind. I'm not going to participate in this. Yeah.
Nico
what does
Harrison has
Nickelodeon
some-
do now since no one watches? Like, kids don't watch TV. So is
Kids don't
Nickelodeon
watch TV.
transitioned to like all YouTube thing? Like, where is Nickelodeon now? Or are they just a skin for football games now? That's just it. It's like that's the way they exist.
I don't know nearly enough about the cable industry to know. I think we're all just going down with the ship, right?
That's right.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
That's it.
I mean, I'm going to survive. I'm holding onto that board, and it's only room for Charlie. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, not in the group chat.
Guess what? Super Bowl this week, guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to pivot to.
Okay, I got a list of players to see who has the most on the line for the Super Bowl right now. What?
Did you get this topic from Talk Radio in 1996?
No, we backed our way into this topic. Let me tell you how we backed our way into this topic. We were talking about it earlier, and Charlie was saying Jalen Hurts wins the Super Bowl. He shuts everybody up. And then
It's Sports Radio to get there.
Yeah. He shuts everybody up.
Prove the doubters wrong. Thanks, Charlie.
And I creeped in there slowly. I was like, actually, Charlie, it matters how he does it.
Yes.
More than anyone else. So like we don't have to do the hacky sports radio topic. We can talk about that because my point is if he does it the way that he did against the Mandos, then yeah, he shuts everybody up. He's had 2 excellent Super Bowls and then won one while playing really well. If he does it the way that they've done it for much of this season, I think people put him in the Brad Johnson category, the Trent Dilfer category, which is I'm sure not where he wants to be.
So I'm actually going to go one step beyond. I think there's certain players who just have – I think the internet has created, especially kind of modern Twitter, has created this army of haters who just hate everything and won't be shut up no matter what. Like I think that like 20 years ago it was like, oh, well, he silenced the doubters because there was no way for like the craziest haters on earth to continue hating. I think there's a pocket of people who are just going to hate regardless, and it's not going to shut them. Jalen Hurts could throw for 410 yards and 5 touchdowns on Sunday, and people are still going to be like, he's mid. Like that's just kind of the media ecosystem now that's set up. Like that's how Twitter is and all that stuff. And so I think it's going to take consistently like a couple of years for Jalen Hurts to not have haters. Like it would it would be this plus. Honestly, I just think that
that's where I disagree
we're
with
in
you.
such a toxic situation right now. They're like,
I think
people still say Mahomes wins because of the refs.
Yeah,
like, that's like a mainstream storyline. I think silencing the doubters is no longer a thing. You can no longer silence doubters.
Kevin, you got to get off Twitter, man. You got to get off Twitter. I think I've had this experience also where I fell into traps when we're discussing Lamar Jackson, where I assume, I think that you believe that oftentimes people believe that the internet conversation is the conversation. Right. And the less and less that I've been on Twitter, the more normal people and real people I'm around and only consume like major media opinions. I'm like, no, most people think Lamar's awesome, and he has to win in the playoffs. Like, most people have a reasonable opinion of it. I think that if Jalen Hurts balls out in the Super Bowl again, no one with any self-respect, no one that I think that we should listen to or care about will have bad things to say about him. Like, we'll, of course, be critical of the team going forward. Like, I was critical of the damn Chiefs all season long. So, like, that fair criticism will be there. But Patrick Mahomes is cemented in a different way. And if Jalen Hurts throws for 400 yards, as you said, in the damn Super Bowl and they win it, you can't say anymore. And anybody who's saying stupid.
Yeah, but you're describing pretty much everybody, including us. We're very stupid, toxic people.
Nah, we don't have to.
I would shut up. I would change my mind on Jalen Hurts. I would. Yeah. But like.
All right. Well, we don't have to give oxygen to the people who are insane. Like, that would be ridiculous. But anyway, Saquon Barkley is next on my list. Because I think that Saquon Barkley, I was making this point that part of the reason they should have gone for the all-time record is because Saquon Barkley is a Hall of Fame talent who doesn't have a Hall of Fame career. And the way that you get into the Hall of Fame.
I agree with that. I think they should have done that. I think that the record was special. I also think, like.
Okay. A little time machine. Okay, you're going to assess my take from 4 weeks ago. I like that.
Like, everybody's going to start breaking the record because it's an 18-week season. Like, that's just going to start happening. But I also think that the Eagles love embarrassing the Giants franchise. The only thing I'll say is this. If Saquon broke the record and there was like this whole chorus there, does that increase the chances the Giants make a move at coach and GM, which would then actually hurt the Eagles because they want to keep Shane and Dable where they are because they're bad at their jobs? Was this eight-dimensional chess by the Eagles?
I doubt it. I think they just wanted to keep him healthy to win. But I do think that there's a lot on the line for Saquon because I think of Terrell Davis as the example of how you get into the Hall of Fame when you haven't had a long career. And if Saquon ends up getting Super Bowl MVP after the season that he has, I think he drastically improves his Hall of Fame credentials.
He's also probably going to have a few more. He's probably going to have a few years too where he plays behind this offensive line and is awesome here. He might have a few consecutive insane seasons. Do you think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame?
I think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. I think he's going to have a few more years, exactly what you're saying, Charlie. I also think we're going to want to put running backs in because we're going to be starved for them in 8 years or 10 years, whenever it is Saquon's going to be on the ballot. We're going to be starved for running backs.
I got a couple other ones that we probably Mahomes and his three-peat, I think we've talked about that enough. That's a lot online there. Reed versus Belichick. If Reed is going to come up and get the throne of best ever, but I think Brady is probably the most interesting now.
That's my favorite one.
Go ahead.
He's calling the game, and even though you do need to get off Twitter, Kevin, like people will just be making fun of him if he does a really bad job calling the Super Bowl after replacing Greg Olsen and getting all that money. But also he's going to be calling a Super Bowl where for the first time, if Mahomes wins and has a three-peat, which is something that he's never done, it's like the first major dent in his GOAT case. So he's got the both sides pressure on him. Your thoughts?
I really think that's an amazing take. It would be yes. I mean, first of all, like Brady, it's a different deal because I thought Brady was going to win every Super Bowl or every AFC title game, whatever it is, because of Brady. And I've now, like, Mahomes has changed me to where I'm almost like anti-science. Like, I'm almost like all of the things I believed so much about analytics and data and all this stuff, I no longer believe anymore because I'm just like, the Chiefs are going to figure it out. And, like, we're joking about talk radio in 1996, but, like, the Chiefs have turned me into a talk radio 1996 guy.
You dress like it.
All I do, thank you. All I do, I'm not wearing a tie this year because it got uncomfortable last year. But all I do is like, I don't know, the Chiefs will figure it out and they're going to win. Like that's all I do. And so there's been nobody like that since Brady, but it's different than Brady. Like I believe in magic and I thought that the Brady thing, it was like, it wasn't magic. It wasn't miraculous. It was that Tom Brady was just going to keep throwing touchdowns and just keep pushing the ball down the field and putting pressure on defenses. And eventually the defense would break. And with Mahomes, it's like, he's going to hit, like, I think you guys probably saw the stat about how many throws he has behind the line of scrimmage. Like, it's screen passes. It's, I'm going to hit Hollywood Brown in the drag route in 3rd and 9. Like, it's same Brady. Like, this is football magic. And it's such a different experience than Brady. And I'm curious if Brady can even process this because it's a different experience.
No, I'm looking forward to this game, of course, and I think to your point, the Mahomes stuff, like, I get you. But it does also feel like the explanation is that he's just playing, or that team in general is playing on just a higher level than everyone else.
And they have a great defense.
Mentally. Yeah. No, I'm including the defense also, and like the way that they approach the game mentally. So I don't know if that, to be fair, like, I don't know if that level is going to be high enough to overcome the talent disparity that I think exists in this particular game. But if it is, having Brady there calling the game is going to be fun to listen to him try to contextualize us watching Mahomes make magic happen, because that's what he's going to have to do, I think, to move the ball consistently and have success against this defense.
I have two thoughts. Number one is that I can only, because of tech issues, hear about every fifth word you're saying, and I've never enjoyed an episode more, Domonique. I've never enjoyed an episode more. But I got the gist of what you were saying, and my curiosity is, if you're Tom Brady and you're trying to establish dominance in the booth, what's the sub-tweet or the kind of critique that you can give without actually killing Mahomes, but just to be like, yeah, you know what, I did this a little bit better. Like, what if you're put in Tom Brady's brain and you just got to do a little dig, what are you going with, Foxworth?
It's a good one. All right, so like it has to be juxtaposed with what Tom Brady would have to do. Yeah. It's pointing to how Patrick Mahomes always bails himself out with his legs in these key moments.
Oh, that's what you went with. Okay.
It's an undercut of his ability to pass the ball. Is like, yeah, this is really great on 3rd and 9 when everyone's covered. He can just run it. Just run it. Like, yeah, he doesn't have to focus on putting the ball in an exact right position against well-covered teams with the defensive end on your back. He doesn't have to do that. Yeah. He can just run it.
So my answer for you, Kevin, is that if they get down like 14-3 and come back, it's like, really impressive comeback. Not quite 28-3.
Not quite 28-3. Yeah.
That's the magic there from Mahomes.
He
but
loves
then you need
to
a special
do,
situation though for that.
Yeah. He loves to allude to that without doing it. Like he, for some reason, treats 28-3 like Al Michaels used to treat gambling. Like he just like alludes to it, and it's like, you can actually just say it. Like Arthur Blank, you coming down to the field? Oh, okay. It's like, all right, man.
I'm not sure they want to see the owner on the sideline. That was the best. Yeah.
Alluding to it is the move. Did you have one? Or you just want us to do the work?
No, I was going to say average depth of target. Not that he would bring that up, but he would just go, oh, man, Mahomes is really, really great 3 or 4 yards down the field. That's really where he does his damage. It's a little different from me where I was hitting that post route, especially later in my career as that developed. But he's just really like right behind the linebacker. He's really able to hit that on time. I think that's where he goes.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Quickly, before you get out of here, let's pivot to some one thing of NBA. We've had like 3 or 4 days now to process the Luka Doncic trade. We've heard Nico Harrison's press conference talking about it, which was
painful.
Something else, I'd say. What are your thoughts at this point about this trade and pushing it forward?
So, I think there's an Occam's razor here where there's all these crazy conspiracies, and what's funny to me is that the best case scenario is there's like a major league style conspiracy. That's the best case scenario for the entire franchise. The worst case is that Nico Harrison is a dunce. And I think that's actually probably the correct take. I think that it sounds like he didn't love his conditioning, he didn't love his weight or whatever, how he seriously took XYZ, fine, whatever. But I think that, like, he thinks that Anthony Davis is, like, right now a better basketball player than Luka Doncic. Like, I think that's a very simple explanation to why this all happened. And he also facilitated it with his buddy, Rob Pelinka, and obviously they worked together through Kobe and all that stuff, and Nico was his marketing guy with Nike. Rob Pelinka was his agent. Like, there's a connection there. But I think the Occam's razor here is that, like, the Mavericks actually think they're crushing it. And I don't buy into any, like, the Texas legislature things or whatever. You don't have to trade Luka Doncic to get some weird Texas legislation thing. Like, I don't think it's that. I think Nico Harrison just doesn't know what he's doing, and that's the simplest explanation for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hesitant to go that far because we talked about this a little bit before, is I've been trying to convince myself of how you get to this point, whereas just the consensus is that he didn't win the trade. It's hard to find anyone who thinks that he won the trade. The best argument you
wasn't Barkley like they crushed it?
No, I think
Barkley and Perkins. Barkley said the Lakers are going to build something in several years, but the Mavs are the second best team in the West.
Right. I don't think Barkley was saying that they won the trade. Barkley was saying that this team is better right now, which is reasonable and defensible. The problem is
wrong.
I mean, I think it's a defensible point. Is like this team is more well constructed. It's neither here nor there. You can't argue that they won the trade. It's the hard part to make the argument. So I think that's the best defense of Nico Harrison is like this team, in his view, is better positioned to take on the Western Conference than it was when it was Luka dependent. The hard part about that is that team did win the West last year. So there's really no easy way. I don't know. I guess one, it pains me to have to say someone's a complete moron, but two is like it feels like there's no room to say the same thing that everyone else is saying. There has to be some other angle on this. I just can't find it.
I just think my thing is it's beyond, not that it's moronic. First of all, everything we've learned since the trade makes it look worse and worse for the Mavs.
Right.
We expected the empty the notebook thing where we're going to find all the things Luka did wrong, and I'm sure that will still come at one point. It has actually gone the other way with how terribly Nico Harrison handled this thing.
Right.
This was more than a dumb move, an incredibly arrogant move. It was an incredible, he negotiated on his own with Rob Pelinka, not going to other teams. When anonymous GMs have said if this was shopped around the league, we would have given up everything possible to get the guy. He pitched it to ownership after he had the deal in place. The ownership laughed at him just the same way Pelinka did. He has been close to this Nike situation. He's been Anthony Davis's guy. This team was 9th in offense and 13th in defense. They're going to get worse offensively with Anthony Davis instead of Luka Doncic. Their title odds went from 20-1 to 40-1 with Anthony Davis on board. They are not a better basketball team today or better constructed than they were before the trade, and their future is in a really tough spot. I was talking about this with Domonique. They're so bereft of picks. We're going to be middle-aged the next time the Mavericks have a chance to win the title if they do not win in the next couple of years with Anthony Davis.
First of all, Foxworth is middle-aged now, but I think that if you look at with the Luka thing and the now they tell us stuff, Charlie, that's what Brian Curtis calls those empty in the notebook stories, is that anything that is wrong with him is within the accepted range of NBA superstars. I was texting with a friend the other day who knows the NBA far more than I do, and I was like, well, it sounds like they didn't like his diet, and they didn't maybe he had one too many Coronas and all this stuff. And the buddy sent back a list of every character flaw with some of the biggest superstars. And they're like, all right, I'm not going to air anybody out here, but it's this team's good with this guy who's got this problem. This team's good with this guy, because that's what you do with superstars. Bob Knight in the John Feinstein book, he says something I've never forgotten, which is you don't make rules on your team because then you don't have to enforce them when your star breaks them, right? The whole thing, the Jimmy Johnson thing about he cut a guy who fell asleep in a meeting, and they said, well, what would have happened if Troy Aikman fell asleep? And he's like, I'd go wake him up. That's what I would do. And it's just different rules for superstars. And for me, it felt like Nico was looking at Luka and being like, no, man, you don't fit here. No, the entire city should be built around Luka. And if he's big, that's your problem, buddy. Figure that out before April. It's fine. You can handle it.
Quick counterpoint. Bob Knight did cut Charles Barkley from the Olympic team. He said, I don't have fat players.
Hey, that's the Olympic team.
That's the Olympic team, not Indiana.
But the second point is that Nico Harrison went further than that. Since he has been in charge of that team, he has not treated Luka Doncic like a superstar. He's gotten rid of the people that Luka liked in the organization, whether it's trainers, whether it's coaches and skill-specific guys, to show that he is not going to treat him like a star because he doesn't view him the way he views Anthony Davis. To your point, that he thinks Anthony Davis is a better basketball player and a better fit for the team.
Bringing in Kyrie makes it hard to argue that Nico is establishing some culture of accountability and maturity and responsibility that he needs to reinforce. But I did defend the Falcons draft of Penix. I think that's one of the more wild moves that I defended because I respect the idea that someone has a conviction that goes against conventional wisdom and they're willing to put their job on the line because of it. I'm kind of more annoyed and grossed out by the people who tend to just follow the book. Like, anybody can follow the book. Like, at some point you have to exercise a specific theory that you have about roster construction, team building, culture building, and winning championships. I am not arguing that this is a good way to go about doing it, but I am saying that it is him putting himself on the line and putting his opinions and philosophies on the table. The fact that he came up and got very little or got less than what anyone believes he could have gotten for Luka Doncic is the more damning part to me than the idea that he would trade Luka Doncic. Like, I think that's the part that's really worth being critical of, is like, you could have gotten more. I don't think it's insane to get rid of a player that's good enough to be the number one player on a championship team. But I do think it's defensible if you get back something that we think is
I'm not even sure of that. I mean, a fan base needs to know that there's a plan in place. So, like, Belichick could do whatever he wanted. He could trade Chandler Jones. He could trade Richard Seymour. He could trade, anybody but Tom Brady, basically. And remember, he tried to trade Gronkowski, and Gronkowski threatened to retire. You could do that because everybody was like, Belichick's got us, we're good.
Yeah.
Nico Harrison has no.
He doesn't have the credibility,
concept.
right?
The only proof of concept is that he can ride Luka Doncic to a finals. That's the only proof of concept. Now he's gotten rid of that piece. So you can't, like, unless you've proven you can land the plane, no one is going to trust you as a first-time pilot. Like, that's just not the way it goes. And so
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not arguing that people should be celebrating him. Like, it's fine. I'm just saying that he made his decision and now he's going to likely lose his job because of it. Yeah. But I respect the idea that he was like, this is what I believe and this is what I want. He didn't deliver it. His press conference was mealy-mouthed and timid and awkward. I didn't like that. But I do think that the best defense of it is like, this is what I believe. I'm not full of this is what I believe when you're building a roster, and I can't have a guy like this. Again, I'm not making the argument that I think this was the right move or it's a move that I would have had the heart to do or I think it's a good idea. I'm saying that that is the rationale behind it, short of calling him an idiot.
I'm going to call him an idiot.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm going to say he's delusional and arrogant.
There we go. That's a nice way of saying he's an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, unless you're getting the craziest package ever, like, 15 teams in the NBA have never had a player as good as Luka Doncic ever in their history, in the 75 plus years of the league. And like, this guy's talent level and where he's headed, like, it's very rare air. His playoff performance is like, it's otherworldly.
Yeah, you're never going to get another playoff.
Yeah, he's beaten teams. He's won series by himself. He's tortured guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are like the wing stoppers of a generation. You look at the Western Conference right now, the Thunder are the massive favorite. He's the dude who made us question whether or not Jalen Williams and Lou Dort were elite defenders last year in the postseason.
I remember that.
Anthony Edwards was called the next Michael Jordan. Luka Doncic just walked into the gym and said, "Hey, buddy, take a back seat." Like, this is the guy you wait for.
I missed questioning whether or not Lou Dort was an elite defender. I think I was busy.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no,
you were. That's one of the times where I need to get off Twitter.
I was surprised.
People were stopping Charlie on the street saying, "Can you believe Lou Dort might not be an elite defender?"
And they're like, the torture chamber might not be as torturous as we think.
It's been breached. The torture chamber's been breached.
I'm embarrassed to say that I thought that Lou Dort would I mean, not stop him, but slow him. Like, I think I believe seeing Lou Dort's body type that Luka wasn't going to be able to out-physical him the way he does everyone else, and then he did it. Yeah. Oh, well, shout out to Nico. Good luck. God bless you. You're going to need it. All right. Kevin Clark, thank you, sir. I'll see you
guys tomorrow.
Soon.
Yeah.
And we'll be down there.
Offline. Off Twitter.
Thanks for joining us. Good luck. Go have fun over at the Nickelodeon booth. Find out if they're still on cable television.
Slimiest athlete.
No, don't ever say that again. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks, great producers. I love you, Paul. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.